Hello, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome in. Hopefully, you can hear me today. How do I sound? How do I sound? Hello, hello. Testing. We good? We good? I'm a little bit behind, so give me just a second here. Can I be heard? That is the question. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Let me just put the word out a little bit that I am live, and we'll start with chapter 1 again of the Mysteries of Baroque as we decided last week. How is everyone while I'm doing this? All right. Okay. Okay. Um One last reminder and we're done. Oh, fantastic. The last day of school before summer break. I'm sure everyone's excited, Winter Fairy. I know I would be. That was always the best time. Alrighty then. Well, now that we are good to go, let's just bring in our game. Get rid of our little going live soon caption, and we are on our way with chapter 1 live. Now, last week we went through the Mystery of Baroque for the very first time. It was a blind run. I had never read this, had no idea what I was getting into outside of the description on Steam. And now we are going to go through it again and make absolutely completely different choices. We are not going to go the occult route this time like we did last time. We're going to hopefully diversify according to what chat decides. And so let's show our stats just at the very beginning so we know where we start. We start with we're garbage at everything. um, and by garbage, our average at everything. We're not we don't have any more athletics than we don't, essentially. As far as our demeanor, we are perfectly neutral in all things. Beautiful. We are the perfect human being, except for the fact that at the beginning of the story we're dead. As for our life, we are fully alive, fully sane, and only 90% human. We're a little bit undead right now. Little our pursuits and desires, we have very minimal of minion sabotage research or evidence. We're only slightly dark, slightly enamored with the theater. We're very neutral on revolution and law, and we're very neutral with the neighboring country of Rococo because we live in Baroque. At we are, I guess, maybe acquaintances with all of these people. Holofernes, Julian, Mona, Raucus, Chloe, and Nicholas. We have not yet met them in the story, but we are about one. So, with that being where we start, let us get into chapter 1. It's alive, which is always a fun time. There is a roll of thunder. Pain surges through your body. It worked! A flash of lightning. It brands itself against the insides of your eyelids. It worked! It worked! You're alive! The pain is overwhelming. You're alive, the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. You open your eyes. There's a coppery taste of blood in your mouth. You are lying on hard metal. The room is very cold and illuminated by harsh, sputtering gaslight. Staring at you in jubilant admiration is a petite young woman dressed in a blood-soaked white garment and a leather apron. Her fine silver-white hair streams out like a dandelion around her head, and her gray eyes are brilliant with excitement. How they laughed at me, the fools. They said it couldn't be done. They said it shouldn't be done. Pompous old men, afraid of progress, afraid of true genius, afraid of me. But we'll show them now, won't we? We'll show them all. She lays a cool hand on your forehead. Her fingers are long, white, and delicate. They are the hands of a surgeon. How do we respond to this clearly excitable crazy lady? Chat, 1, 2, or 3. Who? What the hell? Or dear God? Number 1, I expected a rather different afterlife. Oh, the wit, the wit. This is what the hell, which means it's left up to my choice. Oh dear, oh dear. I'm gonna say what the hell because I last time. What the hell, lady? You can speak? You remember language? This is even better than I could have hoped. The scientist leans over you, peering into your eyes. What else do you remember? Can you remember your childhood? Closing your eyes, you can recall it vividly. Up in genteel poverty in the city of dreadful night, heir to the ancient De Winter name and little else. Childhood adventures both inside and outside of the schoolroom. Your first religious instruction in the mysteries of the labyrinth, the dark place where the souls of the mad and the lost are doomed to wander. Your first taste of fee. The loss of both your parents to the Crimson Death in quick succession. The day that war with Rococo, Baroque's western neighbor, was declared. A war that was ultimately a draw in 6 of the 7 great powers and become one of the bloodiest in the history of the Inner Sea. Your rooms in Radcliffe Terrace. 100 things, big and small, that led you to that unconventional life you chose. Yes, the woman presses. Just what is it that you did? Who were you? Oh, were we a traveler or an explorer? Did we make our living with the blade and the gun? Were we an adept, which I will not pick because we picked it last time? Did we lead a life of crime, which is when Trav's vote? You could have told me a student of human nature is our answer. Did we follow the sciences or were we in the arts? Winterfairy says, so it's between arts and crime. Arts and crime. Oh, you guys give me the most delicious conundrums. Arts and crime. I'm gonna go with arts. Oh, science. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, you're right. You want to follow? Okay, so science and crime. Science and crime. Sorry. Science and crime. I'm gonna go with science. Sorry, Trav, you're being outvoted. I'm going with science. Science. Let us be scientists together with Dr. Holofernes. That seems like a good idea. Good. Baroque needs more sound to you. What was your area of study? Were we an engineer, an inventor, or a doctor to the poor? Choices. Hey, I'm Mad Science together forever. Let's go. So, or are we an engineering scientist, an analyst, or a doctor scientist? Winterfairy votes inventor. Ooh, we census. Ladies and gentlemen, we are an inventor of science. Every day, Baroque's Promethean Society, the engine room for discovery and exploration throughout all the known world, receives plans and sketches for dozens of new prototype inventions. devices for peeling apples more efficiently, wireless sets that supposedly allow communication with the dead, miniaturized handheld difference engines, new telescopes that will allow the viewer to inspect in close detail the canals and monuments on the moon and Barsoom. It is blissful to be alive in this dawn of new humanity. Since childhood, your dreams have been pervaded with images of strange and marvelous devices, flying machines that soar above the clouds like airships of Rococo, great clanking devices like the one that must have dug out Baroque's oubliette quarter centuries ago, devices that connect far-flung cities, that communicate and instruct, that change the world. You've always done your best to translate your visions onto paper, and then into wood and copper and steel and 100 other materials, both exotic and mundane. Often, the devices fail to work at all. Sometimes it becomes clear that while they work in theory, constructing them would be prohibitively expensive. But then, but when they do work, a thrill goes through your heart like no other. Your home on Radcliffe Terrace, as well as your private room at Promethean, is filled with half-finished prototypes with cracking wires and mysterious metal tubes and arches. He's working on at least 5 different things at once, channeling the energy and excitement you feel into the work at hand, knowing that it will change the world. But what is the project that you have pursued with the greatest tenacity? A flying machine? A cure for the Crimson Death? Or a difference engine algorithm capable of turning any piece of raw information into music? Everyone says music. All right. We are turning algorithms into beautiful or horrifying music. Anything from the movement of a flock of birds to the orbit of the blossoming of a flower can be rendered as information, as an algorithm with the difference engine which the difference engine is capable of digesting. And it can theoretically render any algorithm as mathematical music. The listener would be hearing the fears, the music in its purest and most beautiful form as an expression of reality. They would hear the music of God. Could such beauty be possible? You believe that your algorithm, on which you have been working for years, will someday have the power to make it so. And then something terrible happened. What then? What was it that happened to you? The woman asks. You close your eyes. Something, I know it, but part of you does not want to recall. Even coming close to the topic in your thoughts caused a wave of nausea and anguish to roil through your stomach. The young woman is sitting watching you, as intent as a bird of prey. Respond to this question. Nothing good? Somebody killed me to pay for it dearly. I think abducted me. I don't want to think about what happened next, or stare back at her in silence. Winter Fairy says too, somebody killed me and they're going to pay. Trav, what do you think? On to vengeance it is. Somebody killed me and they're going to pay for it dearly. She nods. By my estimation, you've been tortured for weeks before you finally died. You were a mess when the resurrection men brought you to me. You've been flayed and sliced and carved up like somebody's prized goose. But I sensed something about you, what little was left of you. I just knew it. You were going to be the one. You are the one, my great creation, the first of my genius. You've undergone the Holofernes procedure now. You are no longer just an ordinary, well, what are we? A man, a woman, or a person? A woman, a man, or a person? 1, 2, or 3? I believe last time we were a person. It does not matter to me which one we are. What does chat decide? Chat decides X corpse. Not a choice I can make. Also obvious. We are an X corpse indeed. I know. His humor. It gets me every time. But are we a woman, a man, or a person? Come on, chat. Tell me. Make my decisions for me, please. That's what I hunt for. Pretty please. Winter Fairy says 3. A person. Indeed, Trev, we have arisen and we could lead the world into light, maybe, possibly. I mean, we are all about the science. Three. All right, we are a person because that works for all of us. You feel your head to begin to clear. You are able to take in more of your surroundings. You are in a stone walled old room that seems to have recently converted into a bizarre laboratory. Gleaming instruments lie in a row on a low table in front of the altar. Suspended above your head is an enigmatic brass machine that still hums and crackles ominously. The floor is littered with packing. Makeshift shelves along the wall groan under a vast collection of glass jars of sizes ranging from tiny to large enough to contain a human body. These jars are filled with semi-opaque greenish liquid, allowing just a glimpse of their contents. Dark, floating silhouettes of deformed and maimed shapes. A sleek black cat, barely visible in the darkness, pads through the shadows at the back of the room. A window, open to the freezing night air and pouring rain, looks down from a great height onto a rocky gorge below. A large ivory globe occupies one corner, revolving to show the islands and continents. Frozen Fimbul, the great the lands of the great powers around the inner sea, the great deserts of Taksim, the steppes of Gondal, the island of Galadine, the Middle Kingdom, and the mysterious Terra Incognita. The woman continues to examine you in curiosity. The resurrection man dug you out of the De Winter family vault, but I have never found out what your first name was. What was it? Are we Esme De Winter, Morgan De Winter, like we were last time, or Carol De Winter, or something else entirely? We can input our name if any. Esme, Morgan, Carol, or other. 1, 3, or 4. Fairy says, let's make our own. What do we think, Trav? Shall we? Shall we? Lazarus or Cass? Well, Lazarus or Cass? Lazarus or Cass? I mean, Lazarus is kind of on the nose. Cass is definitely a supernatural reference for Cassiel. Which I'm not opposed to. Not that I watched much of Supernatural personally, but I hear it was a fun ride. It's more of a charmed person myself. Trav is making a whole amounts of world building in our De Winter. I'm for it. Let's go with Lazarus. It makes so much sense, and it's very biblical. Oh, Cassandra DeRollo. Yeah, no. Cassandra DeRollo fits as well. Winter Fairy, go critter, my fellow critter. Love it, love it. But we are a person, so. Well, we're Lazarus now. Ha ha ha. Lazarus De Winter. Soon that will be one of the most famous names in all Baroque. She grins, her eyes sparkling. I brought you, see. I, Dr. You were dead, and now you're alive. You're alive. It worked. The Holofernes procedure worked. Now that she's all excitable, what do we ask? Do we ask her why she did this to us? Do we ask her why me? Or how to do this? Asked how in our last run, but we could definitely ask it again. How did you do it? Because we are an inventor ourselves, after all. Science isn't about why. Let's take notes. Yes. How did we do it? Holofernes rubs her hands together, clearly delighted by her own brilliance. I'm glad you asked. You see, as far back when I was studying at Greylock, I've had the notion that there were implications to the de Selby equation that nobody had ever realized. I used the universe difference engine to test my hypothesis. It burnt out, actually, but that's another story. Although they kill the size and intricacy of Baroque's great mechanical brain, the lesser difference engines assigned to the universities are highly sophisticated machines that require great expertise and expense to install. If Holofernes destroyed Greylock University's difference engine, she would have made herself profoundly unpopular by the teaching staff. What my findings suggested was that the delivery of a massive amount of energy from a bolt of lightning, say, to dead matter could unlock the living cells within it and cause it to stir and live once again. You, my friend, my beautiful cadaver, you are the living proof. All right. What do we ask her about? Did you take Horton's third law of necronergy into account? However, I think you did it. It was not truly you who accomplished it. I sensed something greater was at work tonight. You destroyed Greylock's difference engine? Hence storm, as in pointing out the obvious, or an equation and a lightning bolt. Is that really all it took? Travel one, because it sounds sciencey. Okay, we are going to get into discussion. So, Horton's third law of necrotic energy. Did we take it into account? Holofernes looks at you with a new respect. For the first time, she seems to be assessing you as a peer rather than just her prize specimen. Yes, I did, as a matter of fact, although until several promising subjects had already accelerated decay. I wonder, do you think if I had... She is interrupted by a clap of thunder. In the silence that follows, you can hear shouts and tramping of feet in the distance outside. Holofernes rolls her eyes. That'll be the villagers again. Ever since I took up residence in Castle Barrow, the town's muttering and grumbling. The trouble started when I hired some of them to carry my specimen cases up here. They must have taken a peek inside them. I don't know what they saw. It might have been the white-head homunculus, the Edward skull, the beast with 5 fingers, or perhaps even you. Whatever it was, they're convinced I'm the devil in a white coat. So, do we ask about the homunculus? Do we ask about the skull? Do we ask about the beast? Do we ask about ourselves? Do we ask her why she collects these kinds of specimens? Or surely that can't be the only reason they're so suspicious of you. Trav wants to know about the homunculus. Winter Fairy wants to know about the skull. Oh, That leaves the vote up to me. Chat, really? That's what I have you for. Thank you, Trav. You changed your mind. Now I can not be conflicted because they both sounding. They really do. It's obvious for science. Yes, absolutely, it's obvious. What about why the skull? Poor Edwards. A gentleman of Baroque, perfectly normal, rather dull, in fact, except that he had another face. A woman's face on the back of his head. And she wasn't dull at all. Edwards said she used to whisper that to him at night so he couldn't sleep. He would say just what they were, just describe them as ghastly, horrible things that nobody should ever know. He came to me hoping that I could remove it, but it would have killed him. I'm afraid she killed him anyway. 1 more year of sleepless nights and whispered secrets, and he hanged himself. He left me his skull and his will. I'm full of him. It looks like we can ask more questions. So, the homunculus, the beast, me, or why? Ooh, now we're doing the homunculus. All right, let's do it. Funny little creature. A man named Whitehead, a clergyman, came to see me a couple of years ago, wanted to remove a growth from his thigh. I did so and found the most curious thing. The growth was actually a tiny but fully formed living human being. Apparently, Whitehead had been born with a conjoined twin. Pardon that. But as he grew, his twin shrank. By the time I removed it, the twin had become understandably embittered by a lifetime spent viewing the world from the vantage point of a clergyman's thigh. He used to rant on and on about the things he'd seen in his chattering little high-pitched voice. Then one day, to fool, the cat got him, and that was that. I kept the tiny little cadaver. It's a conversation starter. Oh my goodness. The poor homunculus. So the beast, me, why, or surely there can't be the only reason. Onto the beast with 5 fingers. A truly remarkable specimen. It belonged to a surgeon named Harvey, who left it to her nephew in her will. It seems that the hand had ideas of its own. The moment the nephew unpacked it, it ran up his arm and tried to strangle him. He wrenched it off, and it scuttled off to hide amongst the shelves in his library. He'd still hear it running about on its fingers there at night, sometimes throwing books down. He was scared to sleep at night in case the hand broke in and strangled him. He asked for my help, and I did what he should have done at the start. Hired a competent rat catcher to trap the thing. I've kept it in spirits of wine for the last 3 years, but it's still twitching and flexing its fingers in there. I've no doubt that if it ever got loose, it would be up to its old tricks again. Oh dear me, I think that's a Thing reference. Aw, poor Thing. I mean, at the very least, he's completely drunk all the time, but still, poor Thing. There might be a Hammer horror movie about it, indeed, yes. There's also the old by of the murderer's hand that gets up and kills people by strangling them to death, that kind of thing. Love stories this could be to as a reference to, but I would like to. I prefer the Addams fans. I adore Thing. I mean, who doesn't? It looks like Winter Fairy has decided that we should ask about ourselves. Me? Since we're getting answers, why not? We didn't do this last time. This is all very fascinating, actually. Yes, you. Of course, you're beautiful to me, but well, there wasn't much left of you when you to me. I had to graft on a new arm, drive a bolt through your neck, wield a metal plate over the hole in your skull. I won't sugarcoat this for you. You are a monster held together by stitching and scar tissue and animated by lightning. You are not a very lovely sight. Oh dear. Well, let's avoid mirrors in the future, shall we? We might break them. Yay. So, do we ask why she collects these sort of specimens, or do we get on with things? Winter Fairy says get on with things. All right, on with things go. Surely that can't be the only reason they're so suspicious of you. No, there's more to it. The murder started not long after I took up residence here. Some came down from the high reaches, and it's now preying on the townsfolk. Found old Louis the hermit disemboweled in his chapel in the woods. A few weeks later, it was the miller, then the oldest of the Tremaine girls. They hear it howling in the forest at night before each kill. They got the bizarre idea that it must have been something I brought with me, and am routinely unleashing them for their own private reasons. My own private reasons. People always fear what they do not understand. Can you blame them? It sounds like the kind of thing you seem to do, or haven't you tried reasoning with them? What do we respond? How do we respond? 1, 2, or 3? Number 1, we as an inventor ourselves, we understand that the unknown is very scary to people. Then the townsfolk live in a state of and unrelieved terror of virtually everything. Is coming closer. Through the laboratory window, you can see the light of many torches, blazing despite the rain, winding their way up the mountain path to the gates of the castle. Holofernes follows your gaze and sighs. They've never come up this before, she says. Usually they just march back and forth for a while at the foot of the hill, and then all head back to the Green Man to talk about how they've certainly... But I think I'll need to go deal with them myself. You stay here, recovering, and I doubt you'll be able. Why not read the papers? I've had them sent here from Baroque. You can catch up on what's been going on in the world while you've been in a year underground. She leaves the laboratory, indicating on her way out the package containing the newspapers. You heave off the slab. Although the pain is a constant presence, seemingly bred into your bones, you also feel a strange lightness and energy, almost as though the lightning bolt that reanimated you is still coursing through your body. You open and close your hands, experiment. You reflect on your new condition. Just how is it you feel about it? Are we fascinated, horrified, overjoyed, filled with questions, or strangely indifferent? So, what do we pick? Science it is. We are fascinating. We want to learn. There's so much to learn about our new state of being, so many philosophical and scientific riddles to uncover. It means that we are going the full science route. We went fully occult last time. We're going full science this time and seeing how it goes. Or do we want to before I make this decision, let me give you a thought. Last time we went almost full occult, and it wasn't until a good 4 or 5 chapters in that we started diversifying our skills, which did not do us any favors. We faced a couple of challenges along the way because of that. This is another point where we could diversify our skills and interests from the original science to, more well-rounded. So if we go full science, I'm down. I am down. But just know that we will have problems later on because of it. If we want to, we can diversify starting here and see where we come out as the challenges before us progress. But yes, we could go full science. Horrified, I'm not entirely certain what to, but overjoyed is absolutely more of an artistic bent. Questions could be a different stat entirely, and indifference as well. This also could just be personality stuff, like bent on fascinated. Chat, let me know. Are we going all in on science? You tell me. Winter Fairy has changed her mind to 3. Overjoyed. All right, let's check before and after. So right now, we know is that we are science in our faculties. As for our demeanor, we're a bit mysticism and neutral on everything else. Just a bit. Our life has not changed, and neither has any of our pursuits and desires, and nor has anything in the cast. So we are currently slightly mysticism versus reasoned, and we are science. So, with that being said, still want 1, or are we willing to change to 3 just to see what happens? I think the first time round we did indifferent. Or maybe questions. Not entirely. So I'm resetting the vote. 3 or 1. You tell me which one you want more than the other, and we will see what it changes after a decision. So Winter Fairy has changed to 3. Trav is still 1. Fascinated or overjoyed? I'm gonna go with fascinated. Let's see if it actually adds to science or not. We can always diversify it in a little bit. The first 2 chapters are very much gaining skills and things. All right, so before I read, look what I did. It gave us reason. We were slightly mystic and now we're reasoned. So that was definitely a demeanor choice there. So I'm assuming that the other choices we had would have changed different demeanor stats. Everything else seems to be exactly the same. Good to know. Good to know. Pondering your situation, you make your movements still slow and stiff to the case containing newspapers and begin reading. Judging by the newspapers, you have been dead for a year. You skim through the headlines of the past 12 months. There have been the usual tensions and border incidents between Baroque and Rococo. The end of the war appears to have done little to improve relations. There has been another outbreak of the Crimson Death in Rotwang. A general factory strike has been violently broken by Mrs. Gladden's private detectives. The Duke of Mayrink, the Queen's son and heir, is off on yet another of his endless hunting expeditions. The Chancellor of Cadaver Gehorsam, Brooke's closest ally, is due to come to the capital on a state visit next month. The White Devil, an infamous serial killer, has claimed 2 more victims in Oubliette, Baroque's deep, sprawling subterranean slums. The Frozen Man is soon due for another of his centennial public revival. Finally, you come across a reference to your own name. It is the headline for an article recounting your death. It details how you went missing from your rooms in Paris. Your corpse was discovered 3 weeks later, horrifically abused and abandoned in a blind alley on an upper level of Oubliette. Who would do this to you? The article goes on. There is often a tragic irony visible at work in the affairs of men. A came to light mixed de Winter's internment in their family mausoleum. They had Haeckel, who had struck out for terra incognita some 20 years earlier. No more had been heard from him since, and the family had assumed that he had perished in the harsh deserts of that distant continent. In reality, he had gone into and accumulated a vast fortune, all of which he left in his will to his nearest living relative, Lazarus de Winter. The uncle died in terra incognita's new Baroque colony some weeks before Mix de Winter's disappearance. It took some little time to establish them as the heir, and then to send a cable to Baroque, by which time they had already seen. The later discovery of their body confirmed the sad truth. The terra incognita inheritance, in the care of the firm Silence and Savage, now passes on to Mr. Vincent de Winter, the late heir's first cousin. Your cousin, Vincent. Did we always like Cousin Vincent? Did we never like him at all? Or did we not care about Cousin Vincent one way or another? Last time we liked him. This turned out to be a mistake. How will we respond to Cousin Vincent getting our inheritance, chat? We never liked him at all. Is Winterberry's vote. Trav, do you agree? Obsessed with money and kept trying to cage. Yes. We never liked him at all. Vincent was always sly and a troublemaker, even as a child. Even though he was younger and smaller, he still found underhanded mean to undermine you and get you in trouble with adults. Once you both reached adulthood, you cut ties with him to the greatest extent possible. From what you heard, he lived a disreputable, vague since then, moving across the world, earning a precarious living through confident schemes, and it is rumored blackmail and extortion, perpetually on the run from both his enemies and the law. Your heart seems to stop. You recall now the last time you saw Vincent. He broke, having just come back from a trip to Terra Incognita where he was pursuing some unlikely plan to open a cattle ranch. He called by your rooms on Radcliffe Terrace. You were surprised to see him, since you've made no secret of your dislike. He was inside, and you had a short, frosty interview in which a number of grievances were aired on both sides. You remember Vincent's conclusion, mostly because it made so little sense at the time. He was standing on the carpet of your sitting room, his face flushed and ugly with anger. Whatever happens to you, you brought on yourself. You've brought it all on yourself. That last rejoinder he saw out. You remember wondering what on earth he meant by it. Was it a threat? But just how could a near penniless drifter like Vincent imagine he could harm you? Yes, indeed, Trav. Our uncle mysteriously died, and he just happened to be there. Then it happened. You recall the doorbell ringing again shortly after Vincent's exit, and hooded, masked figures standing there in the swirling Baroque fog when you opened it. Then darkness, and the memory of agonizing pain descends. With a thrill of horror, you suddenly understand Vincent's last words to you. There is no question but that he must have been in league with the masked men who abducted and murdered you. He had been in terra incognita. He must have heard of your uncle's bequest to you and realized that he stood to gain it if he was able to get you out of the way. Vincent has taken a fortune that rightfully belongs to you, and he has earned it with your anguish, with your torment, with your death. You will have vengeance. Your thoughts are interrupted by a crash from down below, followed by shouts and the struggle. It seems that the angry mob has not dispersed, but is now storming the castle. You hear Holofern's crying out. Do we go to Holofern's aid? Do we slip away in the confusion, or do we slip away but first set fire to Holofern's laboratory? We went to her aid before, and I am not opposed because it worked out pretty well last time. And it seems like a really terrible thing to not go to the person's aid who brought us back from the dead. Just FYI. Everyone agrees with me. We are going to Holofern's aid. She has been, eager and excitable, but kind, at least to us. So why have we decided to help the scientist? Do we not want to see her hurt? Do we feel it is our duty to help her because she's a human being in danger? Do we feel like we owe her a debt, or do we feel that she is the best chance of learning about our condition? So, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Hurt, duty, debt, or condition. I will take any of those keywords, or 1, 2, 3, or 4. Winter Fairy says we do not wish to see her hurt. What does Trav say? Do tell me. Do tell me. We can like her. Okay. Well, we haven't known her for long, but we don't want to see her hurt. We like her. She's like us. We're the same mindset of invention. Even though she's a You leave the laboratory and find yourself on a gallery overlooking the ruined, shadowy great hall of the castle, a flight of stone flagged stairs leading down to it. A mob of visitors and pitchforks confronts Holofernes down. Mostly men. They are dressed in rough peasant clothes, their faces ruddy with fear, excitement, and alcohol. The leader is a massive, burly, muscular man with a shock of flaming red hair and a beard that falls to his barrel chest. He urges the others on with barked words of encouragement. Holofernes, backed up against the cracked far wall, has grabbed a tall ornamental holder and is holding the mob back with clumsy sweeps of the makeshift weapon. It is clear that once the mob musters up enough courage to simply charge her, she will be able to do little to defend herself. Time is running out. You feel a sudden surge of power and confidence. You know that you are capable of great and terrible things. How do you want to help Holofernes? So, do we feel a surge of hideous strength, and will we leap down from the gallery to the mob on all at once? Do we feel an unnatural eloquence and magnetic through us? Do we know that we can hold the attention of the mob, and when we speak, they'll listen? Or do we feel brilliant conjectures, theories, and ideas racing through our mind to fabricate an explosive device from the materials in Holofernes' laboratory and use it on the mob? How do we deal with this? Brute strength, charismatic eloquence, or a bomb? Strength, words, or bomb? 1, 2, or 3. What do we do? Remember, if we go with bomb, we're all in on science. Winter Fairy says 3. Trav says 2. Essentially, we're asking athletics. What is it? What is the stats? Athletics, perhaps performance or occult, or science. Now we already have some science. We're pretty good with science, so the third one would definitely be the way to go for all in on science. But if we want to diversify a bit, athletics, or I actually think the second one is occult. We are an invent. The third one does satisfy that understanding of our person. However, we went all in on occult in our last run, and going all in on science, we know is not the way. We're going to need to diversify. So I'm going to go with 2 because in this moment, I have the vote. We feel an unnatural eloquence and magnetic power running through us. I know I can hold thee in the mob, that when I speak, they will listen. Step out of the shadows and tell them to leave. Actually, we were able to get it as high as 75 at one point. It's just certain choices did up is kind of the thing. So yeah, it capped out at 75 at one point that I noticed in our last run. Hold, you say, addressing them from the gallery. The townsfolk gasp, horrified by your scarred and deathly appearance. But you pay them no heed. You can feel a great power running through you, as strong and intense as the lightning bolt that awoke you. Why have you come here? What is it you want from this castle? The leader of the mob speaks up, his tone differential despite of himself. There have been killings. Look elsewhere for your killer. You won't find them here. The echoes of your voice fill all the great hall. The leader frowns, clearly trying himself into resisting, into holding on to his righteous rage and suspicion. But the force of your will, of the power in your glittering eyes and your raised voice is too strong. At last, his gaze drops. He silently leads the other out. You descend the stairs to join Hollerns, and an awkward silence falls. Let's see what that did to our stats. Ooh, performance has gone up. Ooh, nice. So I was not the occult route. It's performance. So that has diversified us a little bit. We've also become a little bit debonair, and so that's fun. And Holofernes, because we saved her, is a little bit fond of us. So that's fantastic. We've done the thing. That was interesting. Holofernes shakes her head. So the countryside, she says. I think we both moved on. She hesitates. Personal warmth is clearly not her forte. Thank you for coming to help me, Les. She tends her shoulder. We're going to need some further experiments. The effects of that lightning bolt that brought you back aren't going to last. We'll need to gather enough resources to take you to Holofernes again. I need some time to load my equipment and have it shipped to Baroque. Why don't you go on ahead to the city and find us somewhere where we can set up shop? Somewhere quiet, where they're not too picky about where the rent comes from and noisy neighbors don't exist. Oubliette, maybe, or Saint Hippolytus. I'll meet you in Broyster's Coffee House on Cram Street in 2 weeks' time. You take your leave of Holofernes and stride out through the castle gates. Vincent's nightmare begins. You walk through the fury of the storm, feeling it lash and pummel your body, but onwards, inexorable and unstoppable. You reach a point where a sheer crag overlooks the foothills to the east. You stand on the very edge of the crag, looking out to the east, completely still. Far and dim in the distance, you can see the lights of Baroque, the city of your birth, the city you must now return to in death. In Baroque, you will find answers and vengeance. Wherever Vincent is, you know he will not sleep soundly tonight. Perhaps he thought that the sin that brought him wealth and security was buried and hidden so deep that it would never rise up to trouble him again. But it has, and now it will find him out, whatever he tries to hide. How do we react? What is our response to this thought? Do we smile? Do we scowl? Do we weep? Or do we remain expressionless? Winter Fairy wants us to smile viciously. I believe we did so last time, in actuality. Okay, smiling it is. Everyone agrees. This is going to be so much fun for us. Baroque awaits you, and so does Vincent. Chapter 2: The Phantom of the Grand uh, Guignol. I will never be able to pronounce it correctly. Has tried. He has tried. I tend to refer it as to the Grand Theater because it's easier to say. So, neutral in everything but science and performance, in which case we have some ability. We are debonair, reasoned, but nothing else. We're good on life. We're still 10% a revenant, but we're good on life. And as for pursuits, well, we've not changed so much in pursuits. We have yet to get to those choices. Hollow Ferns, however, is fond of us. We did save her from an angry mob. So that's where we stand. Into chapter 2. We are definitely getting a little bit of a Phantom of the Opera um, subtitle. And it is time to get into Baroque, the city of Baroque. Walpole Hill is a quiet, once fashionable quarter of Baroque. The tall grey houses have a silently watchful air, a haunted and melancholy feeling that intensifies as one climbs up the stone-flagged steps cut into the hillside, up to the center of the district. This height is where the notorious Grand Theatre sprawls, capped by a dome and an ornamental clock tower, looking out over the city, views by day and haunting the city's dreams by night. It has been said that in pagan times, before even the strange days of the new empire of Babylon, sacred plays were enacted on this hillside at midsummer. These plays were said to predict future events even as they reflected upon the past. Whatever may be the truth of this, there has been a theater on Walpole Hill for as long as anyone can remember. The Grand Theater, however, has been flooded with popularity. A certain air of mystery still clings to it, heightened by the fact that its reclusive present owner, Mr. Merritt, has never been seen outside his shuttered and darkened room top of the Grand Theater. Still, it is hardly, even though the theater is hardly the height of fashion, it has been eclipsed by newer, more modish attractions. Magic lantern shows, dance halls, and vaudeville for the lower classes, opera and actualities for the upper. Its great double doors, framed with left and ivory on the right, surmounted by snarling gargoyles, now admit a trickle of customers every night where there once was a flood. Stands, it will play its role, the city's dark and troubled subconscious, reflecting Baroque's hopes and fears, and drawing to it the mad and wicked, the lost and the damned, the weak and the wounded. A place of terror, perhaps. It is within the attics of the great theater you wake, a week after your reanimation Castle Barrow and the events that followed, lying under the eaves, listening to the sounds of rats scuttling to and fro around you. One of them runs over your foot and pauses to sniff at you. It is evidently wondering if you are dead and thus meat, deceived by the coldness of your body and your near non-existent heartbeat. It hurries off immediately as it sees your eyes open. Your head swims with nausea, your vision blurs, and there's the taste of ashes in your mouth. You close your eyes again, thinking on how you came to be here. Gone to the city of dreadful night. The journey down from the footholds of Baroque was something of a feverish blur. Untroubled by hunger or fatigue, you marched through day and night, the lightning still coursing through your body and you seemingly limitless strength. But it became harder to hide from others as you approached Baroque's suburbs, which was also when exhaustion suddenly and unaccountably came to you. You tried to climb into the loft of a barn of an outlying farm to sleep, but the farmer's son gave cry, convinced you were some horror come down from the mountains. He and his men pelted you with stones, driving you back on the road. The report of a monster on the loose must have spread through the district, and mobs of armed night, leaving you with not a ditch or a hedgerow in which to sleep securely. By dawn, you found yourself on the outskirts of Baroque, in the Walpole Hill district, though you could still hear the cries and the barking of dogs in the distance. Desperate for some bolt hole, you clambered up the steps to the top of the hill. The Grand Theatre loomed before you. Now it seemed like a sanctuary. You made your way in through a long disused stage door and climbed upward, old stage sets gathering dust and rusting stage machinery, until you found the long and low attics. You cast yourself down on a tangle of ropes, hummed to exhaustion. Later, you awoke. A light at the end of the attic, by the ladder that brought you up here, catches your attention. It moves. It is clearly a handheld lantern. You are weak and sick to do anything but lie there as it comes to you. Are you to die a second time among the disused sets and forgotten props of the Grand Theatre? Is this really how it will end for you? The light reaches you. A gaunt, nightmarish silhouette looms behind it. How do we respond? Do we use our last ounce of strength to attack? Do we speak, trying to communicate and reason with this bizarre vision? Or do we remain still, trying to conceal ourselves within the shadows? What do we try to do, chat? Winter Fairy wants to hide, wants to talk. That we spoke last time. So perhaps this time we will just hide because it's been left up to me. You lie there, unsure as to whether you can trust your eyes. Exhaustion and fatigue you. Your last sight, before the darkness overcomes you, is the creature bending down to touch your forehead with a claw. An incongruously tender gesture. Another awakening. This time, you find yourself lying on a plush couch, a cushion placed at your head. Looking about you, you have come to consciousness in an ill-appointed and comfortable study. It is well lit with oil lamps, although heavy red curtains and forbidding shutters cover all the windows. A roaring fire set in the fireplace behind you keeps Baroque's autumnal chill at bay. Rows of leather-bound books and collected periodicals line the walls, most of Baroque's best-known journals among them. Elsewhere, some paintings hang on the walls. The artist's themes seem entirely drawn from drama. There's an image of the martyrdom of Saint Hippolytus from the classical play, a romantic portrait of the first meeting between the doomed lovers of Van der Drecken's The Maze of Echo and others. At the far side of the room, a heavy desk is piled high with papers. Behind it, you can just make out a tall, lean form in the shadows. Strange host. Ah, you've awoken, the figure says. I thought you might be more comfortable resting in my apartments than lying among the rats upstairs. Welcome to the Grand Theatre. I am Mr. Merritt, the proprietor. I gather your entrance to be not completely unconnected to reports of a scarred, deathly monster roaming the area, and the mob that has been raised in pursuit of it. Please, have no fear of them entering here after you. The figure rises to his feet, and you realize that your first glimpse of him was not a fever dream. Mr. Merritt is a gaunt humanoid in black insect. His sleek, wedge-shaped head sits atop an unnaturally elongated bowl to either side of the wedge, and it bobs back and forth continuously as he speaks, while his lanky body is all sharp, brittle angles. Making the effect even odder, he is wearing a red velvet smoking jacket and holding a crystalline tumbler filled with brandy in each claw-like hand. For you see, Mr. Merritt says, approaching the fireplace and lifting one of the glasses to you in camaraderie salute, freaks and monsters will always be sheltered at the Grand Theatre, at least as long as I have ownership. Mr. Merritt places one of the glasses of brandy on a low table at your side and continues to sip from the other one, settling down with a clicking sigh of contentment in an overstuffed green armchair on the other side of the fire. Do we take a swallow or two of the brandy to restore ourselves? Politely sip the brandy, which is what we chose last time. Decline the brandy by pushing it away, or drain the glass and look about for the decanter to pour ourselves some more, because we've had a heck of a time. Trav says number 1. Winter Fairy, I would suggest choosing a different one. We did politely sip it last time. All right, consensus 1. We will restore ourselves with brandy. The burn of the brandy is a refreshing jolt to your exhausted body. All the same, Mr. Merritt continues, I'm to a certain curiosity. What is the story behind your scars? What brings you to Baroque? Do we tell the story of our death and reanimation, which is what we did last time? Do we into story? Do we deflect the question with a quip? Or do we decline to tell him anything, having no wish to revisit the pain and sorrow of our recent experiences? Take care, Trav. Thanks for joining us while you could. I hope that whatever takes you away from us is fun. Say hello to your roommate for me. So what do we think, Winter Fairy? What shall we do? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Full story, invent a story, deflect with a quip, or decline? Tell, story, quip, or decline. 1, 2, 3, or 4. What shall we do, Winter Fairy? Deflecting with a quip. We're going to be a little bit quippy. Nice. Let's just say, do not intend to patronize that particular barber again, you say. Mr. Merritt gives a chitter and does not press you any further. There is silence for a while, except for the crackling of the fire, before your owner speaks again. I don't know your plans, my friend, he says, but it's evident that you are not yet well, and also that it is still safe for you to venture abroad. Why not stay here at the Grand Theatre while you recover and consider your next move? There are any number of empty rooms on the upper floors, and forgive me, but there are also some practical matters you could assist me with during your stay. Mr. Merritt has a point. You still feel fevery. All of the demonic strength and energy that carried you from Barrow to Baroque seems to have drained out of you. You do not know where Vincent is, or if he even is in the city at all. Your home on Radcliffe Terrace and your old acquaintances are barred to you now. Lazarus de Winter is dead and buried, and your scarred and misshapen features make you unrecognizable to those who knew you in life. Without lodging, it will be near impossible to accomplish your revenge on Vincent. Another factor also occurs to you. Before you parted, Holofernes asked you to find a place where she could continue to carry out her experiments. The Grand Theatre surely has ample space for her laboratory. The only difficulty might be in preventing the insatiably curious Holofernes from attempting to learn more of Mr. unique physiology with a dissecting scalpel. Very well, you say. I will stay here. Excellent, cries Mr. Merritt. Then let us arrange your accommodation. But before that, do you have any further questions? Now, I know that we can ask any and all of these questions before we move on. So, shall we ask them in order, or do you to ask a particular question first, Winter Fairy? You let me know, since it's just you and me now. Do we ask Mr. Merritt about himself? Do we ask about the theater? Do we ask if Holofernes can stay and establish? Or do we ask if he knows about our cousin? Winter Fairy says, all right, we'll ask him about himself. Me? Once I was just a perfectly average human specimen, a club of alchemists in Merryrink, but I awoke from troubled dreams one morning to find that I had turned into the thing you see now before you. Of course, it was quite impossible that I should keep my position. Instead, I sold myself to a traveling menagerie and was added on the fairground circuit as Entoman, the remarkable insect man. The owner of my show took a liking to me and left me a considerable sum in his will. Using a discreet law firm as an intermediary, I purchased the Grand Theatre and established these apartments here for myself. I've always loved the theater. Interesting. That is not the story we learned last time. But again, we didn't tell him our story, so he hasn't told him his. So he has declined to tell his. Or perhaps this is interesting. On to the Mr. Merritt rubs his hands together excitedly, his head darting back and forth. The insect resemblance is more striking than ever. Ah, my friend, take care, for I can be a terrible bore on the subject of this theater. It is my home, my life's work, and my greatest passion. The Grand Theatre was built 2 centuries ago, although there has always been a theater of some kind here, as far back as records go and folk tradition before that. There's something about this, a kind of enchantment that lends itself to the glamour and mystery of drama. It is my belief that this place is one of the earth's between the world and the realm of dreams and ideas. How do we respond to that? Do we say it's a singular notion? Do you understand? Do we say, I mean, there's something at once comforting and frightening? Do we call it drivel? And that it's nothing more than a ramshackle, run-down old playhouse in an unfashionable town? 2. Yes, I feel that 2 is the polite thing to say. I believe we actually also made this option last time too, but I prefer. You sense it too. I thought you might. I wonder what that changed. I'm going to check the stats. I'm curious now. Our crime has gone up slightly. We have got a touch of crime. We are very debonair now. Slightly less reasoned. So that must have upped our mysticism, I think. Interesting. Anything else? No. Okay. Interesting. So, now we will ask if Holofernes can establish her laboratory. My associate will be joining me in Baroque soon. She wishes to pursue her scientific research where that she may be absolutely undisturbed. May she also reside in the Grand Theatre? I see no reason to deny her, Mr. Merritt replies. The Grand holds extensive cellars. She may work to her heart's content down there without fear. Well, that was nice of him. He seems like a nice guy. I like him a lot. Let us ask about our cousin. No, I'm afraid I've never heard of that gentleman. As you can imagine, it is impractical for me to stray far from the Grand Theatre. Oh dear, oh dear. Well, we have no further questions. Well, let us arrange your accommodation. But first, I am well aware of the difficulties that an unusual appearance can cause among the ignorant. May I make so bold as to suggest donning a disguise in order for you to walk unmolested? Please follow me. Mr. Merritt leads you from his down a passage and unlocks robes and dresses, outlandish costumes, and colorful garbs are hanging in rustling arrays, all but filling the large room. Robes retired properties, Mr. Merritt says with a nostalgic sigh. So many wonderful stories, so many shimmering colors. Excuse me, I am nostalgia. Let us see what may be suitable. He begins rummaging through the stage costumes, his stick-thin arms moving with concerting speed. I should warn you, he says. I believe costumes to be more than board and cloth. Each one has represented some stage, has allowed its wearer to channel something primal and powerful. You may find yourself taking on some of the qualities of the character whom the costume signified. Within 10 minutes, Mr. Merritt has laid out a selection of costumes for you to pursue. Which do you select? So, we have the red jacket and of Saint Hypatia, patron saint of philosophers and scientists, worn in the Glasstown Mystery Play Cycle. Definitely connect up our science. The long coat and broad-brimmed hat and scarlet scarf of Messer the Highwayman and the raucous body of Oubliette Pastoral, which will absolutely up our criminal. An army greatcoat and face bandages of the unknown of war, which will up our athletics. The executioner's hood and black attire of the cunning Justice Webb investigating magistrate in the trapped rat, which I believe ups our insight. The half-mask and domino of Scaramouche, the brilliant harlequin and musician of Rococo's eternal comedic plays,
which I believe ups our performance. The falcon mask, slouch hat, and cloak worn by Judex, the swift and agile hero of the thrilling um, Averone drama Judex Avenged, which something combat. I could have athletics and combat switched. Actually, I think that one is athletics and the soldier combat. And then there's the cowl and mirror mask worn by the stranger in the enigmatic occult opera, The Fisher King, which is what we chose in our first run, which ups occult. Winter Fairy wants to kind of go all in on science, which I understand, but this is a chance to up one of our other skills. We already have science or performance. We have a tiny bit of crime, tiny bit of crime. So we could go for any of the other four that we don't have in, thus ensuring that we have a broad range of skills to pull from for any future situation. But if you want to go all in on science, we can. Let's go insight. Okay. I believe that is the judge. Let's see here. So this is science. This is crime. This is combat. Yeah, I believe judge is insight. If I am incorrect, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure that the cunning Justice Webster with the executioner's hood and black attire. Yeah, because this one is definitely performance is, I believe, yeah, swift and agile athletics. Yeah, we go with the judge. And it ups our insight. So now we have a little bit of play here, which is helpful. You slip the black clothes on before pulling the hood over your head. While you will see unusual sight, you can now at least walk the streets without undue attention. You immediately feel sharper, more alert. You notice details of the room and costume that eluded your attention before, that would have eluded anyone's attention. In the play, one of the Mobius puzzle plays that were fashionable at the close of the last century, Justice Webster tricks and lures the murderer into a maze of laws and alibis, coolly confident of his own superior ability to retain his grasp on truth and reality. You feel some of that shrewdness and power of observation now. A grim attire, my friend, Mr. Comments, but perhaps it fits your purpose. All right. Give Caleb all the love for me. I will continue reading here. You're welcome to enjoy the VOD later. Beneath the clock tower. Miss Merritt leads you along another corridor and up a short flight of stairs of bare, virtually unfurnished rooms spread across 3 floors of the Grand Theater's clock tower. You may decorate them to accommodate your tastes, Mr. Merritt says. For the moment, I'd like to discuss that other matter. He begins to lead you back to his study. You see, these are difficult times for the Grand Theater. I sense that you are a gifted individual, somebody who might make all the difference in the fate of this theater. We have a show in a week. All that I ask is that, while you stay here and recover your strength, you do what you can to assist this place. After all, we can only shelter you as long as the theater is still in existence. More important, we are the shepherds of Baroque's dreams. If the theater is allowed to die, what will become of the city? I have a decision by myself, which sucks. I love chat. I wish I had more of you. We can ask that aren't there dozens of playhouses and music halls throughout Baroque? What makes the Grand Theater exceptional? We will never know because I will not allow the theater to die, or what will I will do what I can, but I have business of my own in Baroque. I feel like we did the third one in our last run. We do have our own business, but has been very kind. We have through both our runs been kind to those who've been kind to us. So I'm gonna ask what makes special. See what happens. Nothing, perhaps, but I believe it is exceptional, that it plays a role of crucial importance in allowing Baroque to express and explore its subconscious. Mr. Merritt sits down behind his desk. We are currently putting on a production of Augusta Geraldine Almeida, The Gondian Tragedy. It's opening in a week. Some say it's cursed, and we've certainly had our fair share of misfortune. The actors are complaining about the script. They find it melodramatic and overblown, and the scripted sword fights dull and uninteresting. The masked acrobatic dancer who represents the spirit of anarchy has broken her leg and will not perform, and the musicians in the orchestra are threatening to go on strike. He sighs. To make a little more money to tide us over, and to do a favor for an old friend from the show circuit, we've hired a stage magician, the great Valario, to do midnight shows every night this week, but he's getting booed and laughed at. He says it's because the stage machinery is faulty, and it's true that the trap door makes an infernal grinding sounds and many other things don't work. But his part is also just too dull. Occult themes, mysteries from ancient Taksim, they're all the rage at the moment, but he's sticking to his old script. Matters worse, a gang of pickpockets calling themselves the Dead Rabbit Boys have taken to preying on our customers. Finally, a new theater, the Devil's Lantern Playhouse, has opened on Walpole Hill. They're stealing our customers, doing everything they can to sabotage our shows. So, we can ask, perhaps they simply offer superior entertainment. What sort of dramas do they perform, or have you any proof against the Devil's Lantern that you could take to the Metropolitan Police? That is a good question. I don't want to say they offer superior entertainment. I mean, there are many playhouses. And as Mr. Barrett has says, perhaps nothing is exceptional about the Grand Theater, but he thinks it's exceptional. Ask what sort of dramas they perform, but he has mentioned that there's a lot of occult themes, mysteries that are all the rage. So perhaps we should ask if there's any proof. I'm going to go with that. No, I'm afraid not. In that area, they operate with a kind of subtlety and sophistication completely lacking in the vulgar fare they put on stage. That's not good. Behind the scenes at the Grand Theater. Mr. Merritt leads you downstairs to a place in the wings where you can observe the action on stage. You watch as a rehearsed first scene from Augusta Geraldine Almeida takes place in the darkened, empty theater. Playing Augusta is a striking golden-haired young woman. There's something simultaneously vulnerable and yet resolute about the set of her delicate chin and the dreamy, faraway look in her blue eyes. She moves about the stage, reciting lines of the accompaniment of violin, the only music playing. Looking down, you can see the musician, a young man, his face, that careworn, ascetic, dark-tinted spectacles covering his eyes. He brings forth ravishing, heart-rending notes from his instrument, all of his concentration focused on the sounds. Chloe, Mr. Merritt whispers, indicating the girl on stage, and that's Julian playing, blind from birth, but an astonishing violinist. There is an eerie, dreamlike quality to the scene, a pale beauty speaking her lines to a hushed and empty auditorium, the blonde violinist accompanying her with mournful music, and their two observers, the gaunt and insectile creature and the dead person. The scene comes to an end, and Mr. Merritt brings you out on stage. Someone I'd like you to meet, an old acquaintance of mine who is not well at present, and must stay bundled up for health reasons, who will be staying at the Grand Theater to recuperate. They will also be helping us out with some of our problems here. Chloe smiles at you, her eyes luminous and clear. Julian bows from his position among the orchestra seats. Which of the problems facing the Grand Theater will receive your attention? So rewriting the script, I believe, is connected to our our performance. We can rely on our natural vigor and grace by taking on the role of the spirit of anarchy, which would be athletics. We could choreograph the fencing scenes, which would be combat. We can employ our artistic sensibilities when dealing with Signor Augusto and the other musicians, which may in fact also be performance. We could help great Valario introduce occult themes into his work, which is occult. We could try to repair the stage machinery, which I believe is science. We could deal with the dead boys, which is crime, or we could look into the playhouse, which might also be crime. I know for a fact that science is kind of the way we're going. So repair the stage machinery. We are an inventor. Perhaps we can be of most use there. Let's hope. You slip backstage and begin examining the stage machinery. Although it was obviously once state of the art, the years have not treated. Rust stains many of the metal gears. Pumps and bellows have been punctured and patched. Levers have been snapped off and inexpertly jury rigged. This will take time. Very little is seen of you at the Grand Theatre the ensuing week. You are either prowling the factories and warehouses of Oubliette and the docks looking for salvage metal and discarded parts that you can use, or you are furiously at work in the bowels of the theatre, cutting, welding, and soldering. You work like one possessed, your great designs perfectly clear and lucid in. At the end of the week, your work is finished. The trapdoor functions seamlessly, bringing gods and devils up into the action. At the flick of a switch, thunder can roll through the auditorium. Rain and snow can fall from above. An elaborate engine set into the stage revolves, allowing sets to be changed between scenes with ease, while secret doors in the paneling allow actors to disappear from sight at will. You have installed 100 little tricks and devices in and around the Grand Theatre's stage, giving its performers and directors an unrivaled toy box with which to create the boldest and most stunning, though nobody but you will ever be able to muster the full extent of the strange new machinery or know the deep secrets that you installed. You have made the Grand Theatre into a true stronghold of illusion and mystery. Mr. Merritt is speechless as you show him the machinery you have installed. This is extraordinary, he says at last, pumping your hand. The Grand Theatre will be flooded with custom. A free day. The week is over. Lying in bed in your rooms under the clock tower at the Grand Theatre as dawn breaks over the city, you reflect on its events and what awaits you next. Tomorrow is the day you are scheduled to meet Holofernes at house on Cram Street. She may be able to give you further insights into your new condition and the strange powers it appears to have granted you. She may also be able to further your vendetta against Vincent. Mr. Merritt has given his permission for her to set up her laboratory in the cellar of the Grand Theatre. Down in the parlor adjoining his study, Mr. Merritt has let out a lavish breakfast for himself and his new guest. Hidden under silver tureens are warm, crusty breads, cold meats, kippers, ham, and eggs. An impressive selection of cream, curds, jam, and marmalades are arrayed across the spotless tablecloth, while huge pots of coffee, tea, and hot chocolate wait on the sideboard. We have the option to help ourselves to something from everything in sight. We have the option to eat only a small amount, and we have the option to decline anything but a glass of well water. I actually think we politely ate a small amount last week. So I am going to help ourselves to something from everything in sight. I think we are owed a lavish feast for the amount of help that we have brought the theater. Death has honed your appetite. You eat and drink with enthusiasm. Mr. Merritt eats with a good appetite, handling the fork in his claws with surprising dexterity while making polite conversation. As the meal reaches its conclusion, Julian, the blind violinist, and Chloe, the Grand Theatre's gifted young lead, enter. They are clearly intimate enough with Mr. Merritt for this to be no intrusion. Indeed, the old impresario shows obvious pleasure at their entrance. A debate over breakfast. Tell Julian he is being how stubborn he's being, Chloe asks of the two of you, helping herself to a cup of chocolate. I have tickets to the Frozen Man's 20th awakening. The Frozen Man! But Julian doesn't want to go with me. He's going to the opera to see Inna Dimazi, which I know he's seen a dozen times. Chloe's excitement is understandable. The 2,000-year-old survivor of the new Empire of Babel, a man living in suspended animation in a great glass castle. By his own wish, he is ceremoniously revived every century and informed of the events that have occurred before taking questions from his audience and then resuming his long sleep. It's one in a lifetime, Chloe says, shaking her golden head. Why would you turn down a chance to experience something like that? Life isn't just about accommodating experiences, Julian objects mildly. No moment is repeatable. No 2 day performances at the opera. They're all unique. They're all once in a lifetime. What do you think? Chloe asks. We have the choice of that we agree with Chloe, that we understand her hunger for experience, her curiosity and lust for life more because we have known death. Do we think she is right because if you are not seeking out new things, really alive? Do we think Julian is right? There's no point in chasing novelty for its own sake. Or perhaps they're both right. Chloe for her way and Julian for his. That is a good question. I must now make a decision by myself. Just going to get a glass of water while I think about this. You know, we have known death. I believe we picked number 4, that perhaps they're both right last time, but I think I'm going with Chloe this time. We are an inventor, and thus the novelty of new things is kind of our forte as we've made decisions up into this. So I think that because we have known death, we understand her hunger and her curiosity and lust for life all the more. I think that is kind of the way to go because we are a curious inventor in our own right. So I'm going to side with Chloe in this one. The conviction and passion with which you speak clearly impresses Chloe. Her blue eyes widen. The topic is dropped after that, and the conversation becomes more general. It appears that Chloe won her 2 tickets for the Frozen Man's Awakening in some kind of lottery. Since Julian already has tickets for the opera, and Mr. Merritt rarely leaves the Grand Theatre, he invites you to accompany her to the Awakening. Julian, meanwhile, suggests that you might wish to come with him to the opera. Mr. Merritt is going to spend the day, as he spends most days, overseeing the business of the Grand Theatre behind the scenes. So how will we spend our day? We could go to the opera with Julian. We could go see the Frozen Man with Chloe. We could spend the day in the theater with Mr. Merritt. We could investigate our old rooms on Radcliffe Terrace, or we can wander across of what we can of the goings-on in the city. Last we went to our old rooms in Radcliffe Terrace. They weren't exactly as we had hoped. Seeing as we'd had to break into them, but particularly matter. Let's see here. I think yes, we have made Chloe a bit fond of us. We have also made our the theater higher as well. We are debonair and reasoned, a bit cynical, a bit hedonistic at this point. But that's really it. I think that we are going to pursue more time with Chloe. I want to get to know Chloe. Mr. Merritt, we got to know in our previous run quite a bit. But he's not one of the relationships that we can pursue. I think I'm actually going to pursue more of a relationship with Chloe this time around. We've already become fond with her by siding with her. I think we will go see the Frozen Man. And I also happen to know that the Frozen Man might have more interesting things that we didn't find last time. Welcome back, Winter Fairy. I've been making decisions, but I'll let you weigh in on this one. So we have a free day, and we have the option of going to the opera with Julian, even though we did not previous to this side with him in his opinions of that every moment like no two moments are ever the same. We could go to see the Frozen Man with Chloe, and we did side with her that the Frozen Man, um, or rather, the novelty Frozen Man is a once in a lifetime thing, and that was clearly a good philosophy that we agree with. We could spend the day with Mr. Merritt. He has been kind with us, but all he's going to do is oversee the business of the theater. Could go back to our old rooms in Radcliffe Terrace to see if there was anything there left behind that find information on, or we could wander across the city of Baroque, learning what we can of the goings on of the city. Now, I sided with Chloe, which means that our relationship with Chloe, the beautiful golden hair, blue eyed ingenue Chloe, um, is a little more fun. And so I would love to go with Chloe to see the Frozen Man. I think there will be interesting things to learn from the Frozen Man. But um, if you want to weigh in on this decision, you are welcome to. You agree. All right, we're going to go with Chloe. I have convinced you, apparently. Ooh, we got achievement. Like a fly and amber. Attend the Frozen Man's awakening. As you walk with Chloe, you consider the Frozen Man. It is certainly one of Baroque's strangest. It seems that during the time of the new Empire of Babel, an era that possessed technology far in advance of even the Promethean society's wildest dreams today, it was possible to halt the aging process by freezing a living subject in a specially prepared capsule. The subject could be revived years, decades, even centuries after they were frozen without having aged a day. However, the technique was fatally flawed. The first experiments revealed that the subject could not exit instantly perishing. Once within the chamber, they were trapped there forever. One eccentric, however, still wished to undergo the process. It appears that his intellectual curiosity was stronger than his desire to live life itself. He left behind explicit instructions. He was to be a century for an hour and given a general update on the events and changes of the past 100 years before being returned to his icy sleep. Thanks to certain modifications made to his brain during the days of the new empire, this so-called paracellate modification, he is capable of learning the local language within minutes of awakening. Babel has fallen, and the secret of replicating the technology is lost, but the Frozen Man still sleeps in his unbreakable, transparent bubble. During the fall, it was taken by barbarian raiders and made its way across the world. It was eventually looted from Have during Baroque's invasion and brought in triumph to the Museum of Baroque. What do we think of the Frozen Man's decision? Was it a noble sacrifice in the interests of scientific curiosity? Was it a deeply short-sighted step to take? Or was it obviously motivated by some incomprehensible inner pain or desire, and so there's little point from the outside? What do we think of the Frozen Man? I mean, we are a scientist. This is a choice we never made in a previous run, so it's all up for grabs. 1, 2, or 3. Curiosity, foolish, or motivated? Winter Fairy says 1, a noble sacrifice in the interests of scientific curiosity. In all the time that he has been frozen, the Frozen Man's wishes have somehow always been obeyed. For was intentionally made simple and straightforward, and the tradition has been passed down through all the long chain of the capsule's owners, sometimes phrased in terms of religious or philosophical duty. Sometimes the Frozen Man has woken on the great steps to listen as mad bard chants the mighty deeds of the century's heroes. At other times he has woken to find himself among the swaying palms and coral beaches of Calypso. At present, adhering to the Frozen Man's instructions is overseen by Silence and Savage, Baroque's oldest law firm. He is due to be awoken today. And thus we go to the Museum of Baroque. Public curiosity is intense, but there's only so much space available at the museum's auditorium. A public lottery has been held to allot pairs of tickets, the lottery at which Chloe has won hers. The museum is an imposing neoclassical building near the edge of the Gardens district. Walking with Chloe, you file into the auditorium and take your seats. The frozen man's capsule has been set up at the center of the room. It is large and teardrop shaped. Within, among the swirling white mists, you can just make out the outline of a naked man. A somberly dressed lawyer from Silence and Savage stands by to operate the controls. Once all the audience has assembled, the switches are pulled and the mist drains away, leaving the frozen man visible and slowly stirring from sleep. He is unremarkable to look at, a man of average height and build, whom one might not even consider twice if one saw him on the street. In accordance with tradition, he is given a selection of newspapers through a slot in the capsule and allowed to spend the first half hour of his time awake through their headlines, catching up on the events of the past century. You were reminded of your own browsing of the newspapers in Castle Barrow after Holofernes reanimated you. After the frozen man has learned everything he cares to of the past 100 years, the audience is allowed to put its own questions to the millennial old man through gear built into his capsule. Do you have a question for him? We can ask, how was the new empire of Babel able to accomplish its technological feats? We could ask, what insights have you obtained from your experiences? Or do we ask, do you consider the choices you made worth it? What are we most interested in? Babel, experience, or choice? One, two, or three? What do you think, Winter Fairy? Two, what insights have you obtained from your experiences? Interesting. That's a good question. There's too much technology to even explain in a half an hour. So insight, I think, is a good question here. It is a choice we've never made before. So there is a long silence before, at last, the frozen man's beaker crackles. I do not think humanity is getting any better, he says. And again, I see little evidence that it is getting any worse. Insights? Perhaps this. Life, any life, can be infinitely long or as brief as a mayfly's day. The same life, mine or yours, can be both. Perhaps that makes no sense. It's hard to make sense when you're frozen in time. The frozen man takes a number of other selected questions from the audience, speaking of the wonders of Babel and the strange things he has seen on his various awakenings throughout history. As the end of the hour approaches, the lawyer from Silence and Savage cuts off further questions. The frozen man politely bids you and the rest of the audience farewell and returns to his long sleep as the swirling white fog fills his capsule once again. The once-in-a-century conference is over. Thoughtful, the audience leaves the museum with you and Chloe among the throng. She smiles as you walk out together. I'm glad you came with me, is all she says. And then we head to Brewster's Coffee House. Next morning, sitting in Brewster's Coffee House on Cram Street, a bustling, noisy place. Set on the wall below the gallery is a stone lion's head, its mouth open in a menacing snarl. Every now and then, somebody will approach it and stick paper into its mouth. These papers will contain limericks, opinion pieces, jokes, and hand-drawn cartoons. Each week, a selection of the best is published in Brewster's Baroque psychocomp newspaper as The Roarings of the Lion. You have been here for several hours, and there is no sign of Holofernes. No message has been left with the staff, and nobody can recall seeing anyone matching her description. Where is she? Stand up from your seat, and then darkness overwhelms you. Holofernes? No, this is the second time we have passed out for no particular reason. When next you awake, you are stretched out on a much splintered wooden table in a low-ceilinged attic. A white-haired figure in an apron looms above you, wielding a scalpel. For a moment, you almost imagine it to be Holofernes before you see that it is an old man, a surgeon. He sees that you have awoken, and his jaw drops in shock. You, he stammers. You eventually get the whole story out of him. How you collapsed in Brewster's coffee house. Those around you were unable to revive you. You had no heartbeat, and your skin was cold to the touch. The surgeon is shifty as to just what happened next, but you suspect that Brewster hoping to avoid a proprobrium of a death at his establishment, and to earn a little money as well, sold your body to the surgeon to practice anatomy upon. You must have awoken just as the surgeon was beginning his work. Whew! You brush him aside along with his questions. This attack was similar to the fevers and exhaustion you experienced at the start of the week, but much more intense. It is clear that there is a flaw in the Holofern's procedure, perhaps a fatal flaw. The lightning with which Holofernes reanimated you has only given you so much life. If you are to accomplish your goals, if you are to take revenge on Vincent and his still as of yet unknown fellow conspirators, you will need Holofernes' help. You must find her. Holofernes is somewhere out there in the sprawling city of Dreadful Night or beyond. Vincent and revenge will have to wait. You cannot take the chance of dying once more before your task is complete. Before taking your vengeance, you need to find a woman whose scientific genius is only matched by her mad hubris, the woman who considers herself your creator. You need to find Dr. Holofernes. End of chapter 2. So, once more, we are back at chapter 3, Gaslight. Let us check over our stats and wrap this up. We have been at it for a while. We have made many choices, and we have faculties far more diverse than we did in our first run. So, athletics, occult, combat are very much still neutral. We've gained a tiny bit of insight, decent science and performance, as well as a tiny bit of crime. As for our demeanor, we are truly ruthless and compassionate. We are far more debonair than brooding, neutrally forthright and scheming, but far more reasoned than mystic. We are a bit on the cynical side over romantic, a bit on the hedonistic side over austere, and we are as courteous as we are blunt. As for our life, nothing has really changed. So far, we still have Farge, full sanity, and 90% human because we are a bit undead. As for our pursuits and desires, we have not pursued minion sabotage, research, evidence, or darkness any further, but we have pursued the theater a bit more. We're still just as revolutionary as we are lawful, and we have neutral feelings about the neighbor of Rococo. As for the cast, Holofernes has become fond of us. Julian to have made the acquaintance of Mona, yet to have made the acquaintance of Raucus, and are all just acquaintances, if unknown. Chloe is become rather more than fond of us, considering we have paid her quite a bit of attention, and we have yet to meet Mr. Nicholas. So he is, at best, not even an acquaintance yet, much like Mona and Raucus. So that's where we stand at the end of this. But we did gain achievement. We have gotten like a fly in amber. We've been to the Frozen Man's awakening. Everything else we gained in our last run. There are many more achievements to find in a playthrough. So we have definitely made different choices this run. Now that we have a little bit more understanding of how this story goes, and I'm excited to discuss choices we will make differently in the next chapter. But today, this is the end of my stream, and I hope that everyone who has been here has enjoyed. I appreciate everyone's help making decisions, and take care until tomorrow, where we will start with chapter 3 of the Mysteries of Baroque, a choose your own adventure story / game by choice of. Take care, everyone. I will see you next time. Bye.